here we're sort of building up the user interface. This is a particularly static, simplistic component. It's not particularly deep in any way, but it helps give information on what that slider is for. So we're building up a user interface piece by piece, and some of it is more active, like the slider, and some of it is quite static, like this one here. Okay, we have this. We have this element there, and then I'd like you to further drag that same type of element, a text, another text one over to the right of it. Now this one's going to be more textured. This one, instead of just being a fixed label like population size, this one is instead going to be a variable label, a label that's going to change over time. It's going to change in response to the slider value. It's going to report the current value of the slider. Okay? So in short, this on the left is a text label that we dragged there, and we gave it a fixed title. It's going to stay in perpetuity. And we dragged another text one over there. I called it text slider value. And this one, the text for it, I eliminated here because we're going to be setting it. We're going to be setting it as the slider value changes. So sometimes we just, set the text to be some fixed thing and don't worry about it anymore. Sometimes we're going to be changing the text over time. Okay, so how are we going to set the value for that, for what the text is? Well, we've done this before. In fact, we did it just before I flew off to China. We did it. Remember, we have dynamic properties associated with things. So here, we have this element here. We have this, and you click on that. This is a text element. It's a text control. And if you go to dynamic, there's a field for it, text. It's a field called text. And that text field gives you a chance to specify a bit of code, an expression, computes a value, to use for the text. So we could say slider population size dot get int value. So what does this mean? Can anyone help unpack? So the fact that I'm associating this expression with the text field of this text control, what is that doing? Why do I want to do this?
It's going to display the current value that the slider is set.
Yeah, exactly. So automatically, it's going to take care of, these are dynamic properties. So every time slider's updated, it's going to take care of adjusting the text that's shown associated with this control. Now we could have had the X and Y also depend on that, right? And that could lead to some amusement, a certain measure of mirth. As we adjust, so if we had X be this slider population size dot get int value, what would have happened? As we adjust the slider, it would move it around. Yeah, it would move this thing around. Here we're not looking for anything quite so fancy, although you're welcome to pursue your own designs in secret here, beyond the eye of the professor. But here we're just setting the text because we want the text to be updated, okay? So every time the slider value changes, we want this to update. Okay, so here we've set the text, and so what we should have is something like this when we run it. We should have something where, as we adjust this, as we frob, as we say, we frob this little slider element, it should change the value shown for population size. Okay, so that's going to tell us basically what population size we're selecting with this slider, and population size over on the left-hand side is just a static element. This, by contrast, is changing, and by moving this around, we could change that. And then once we've settled on a population size of our choosing, we can go and we can press this button and it will run the model with that population
population size.
Does that make sense? Okay, so big picture, we have these controls. Some of the controls are very static properties that aren't going to change, like the population size label. Others are going to be interactable directly, like the slider. Others we're going to set their properties when things are running to reflect the values of other controls. And then when we press some buttons, it's going to start some action, like here, running the model, where the parameters are set according to